Aethelred the Unready. He was king of England from 978 until 1016. And he was married to Aethelred. With her he had 13 children, among them Edmund Ironside, or Edmund II, the same person, and also then married to Emma, the daughter of the Duke of Normandy. And with her he had 3 children, and one of them is Edmund the Confessor. His person who was before him on the throne in England was murdered, and when he became king in 978. And he was then reigning, and he has the title Aethelred the Unready. That is from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, where the person who has written that described him like that because that person really liked him. And now it goes back to that he was during the time dealing with the Danes and the Vikings, which were attacking England a lot. And he wasn't really able to stand up against them. He also fought against them. There was a Battle of Malden, 991. He tried to bribe them on the advice of the Archbishop Sigeric. He collected money, protection money, bribed the Vikings that they wouldn't attack them. He also tried it with brutality and pure violence. He ordered on the 3rd of November 1002 the St. Brice's Days massacre of all Danes. That more or less just destabilized the country, and powerful lords came about. For example, Edmund Ironside, and they were then ruling local regions. The Danes attacked. Also, the Danes attacked, and they also attacked Kent, and they burned down Canterbury Cathedral and murdered the next archbishop, the other one, Arthur Sigurd. And he had to flee then the country also. There was also battling in Ireland. The Danish king Sven Forkbeard became more or less at some parts king because he had to flee, but this was still in English hand also. When the King Sven Forkbeard died, then his son King Canute followed, 1014 then, ruling that part. Then he came also back to an ineffective end of his reign, King Aethelred the Unready. But he died then also in 1016, and he was then succeeded by his son Edmund Ironside, who was then fighting against King Canute, the son of the Danish king Sven Forkbeard. So, and then it goes on, his reign ends with that his son Edmund Ironside is fighting against the son of Sven Forkbeard, the Viking or Danish king, and they are fighting a bit, and after some severe battles they decide to share the kingdom. Edmund Ironside dies pretty soon, and King Canute starts to reign whole England then onwards, after Aethelred the Unready. And that is according to the history of the kings and queens of England and Scotland, written by Edmund Swinglehurst on the page 18 and 19. Hi and welcome. I'm trying to learn medieval studies today. Aethelred the Unready, and after we've done that, we're going to do stretching. And if you participate in the stretching, then it's really honest, and we're talking about a war and also about a massacre. Aethelred the Unready. Born 968, he was king of England or something, 978 until 1016. Parents are King Edgar and Aethelred. He ascended onto the throne on the 18th March 978. Crowned in Kingston upon Thames, April 978, authority to be the King of England. Married first Aethelred or Algiva, daughter of an ealdorman. Second, Emma, daughter of the Duke of Normandy. Children with Aethelred, 8 sons, including Edmund II, and 5 daughters with Emma. No. 8 sons and 5 daughters with Aethelred. And 5 daughters. With Emma, 2 sons, including Edward the Confessor, and 1 daughter. Okay, he had 13 children, 8 sons, 5 daughters with Aethelred, and then 2 sons and 1 daughter with Emma. He died on the 23rd April 2016 and is buried at St. Paul's Cathedral. The title The Unready, or more accurately The Ill-Advised, given to Alfred's successor, So we're talking about Alfred the Great, but he was not the direct successor. The second or third, I think. Alfred the Great reigned until 899, and he started 80 years later. So probably 3-4 people in there. So, the advice given to Alfred's successor derives largely from the writer of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, who was an admirer of Alfred and disappointed in his successor. He has written, "Another history, compiled under Alfred's rule, was the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a history of England from before the arrival of the Romans." I was saying Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, who was also written about. No, we don't say it was written on. We just said it's the same author. Whatever. Someone called him that. Someone called him the unready or ill-advised. Aethelred was slow, the person we're talking about. Aethelred was slow and ineffectual in dealing with the Danes, and the Viking invasions intensified during his reign despite his efforts to contain them by enlarging his navy. The Danes were attacking, and Aethelred the Unready was not really able to stop them. He built the fleet out, the navy out, but it wasn't able to stop them. Recent studies of Aethelred show that he was an able administrator and constructive in dealing with legal and financial matters of government. What he lacked was Alfred's warrior character, and, despite a stand at the indecisive Battle of Maldon, he found it difficult to protect his people from Danish attacks. So he was able to administer, to govern, and make constructive dealing with legal and financial matters of the government, but he was not able to stand up against the Viking and the Danish invasions. The idea of buying them off with money came from his advisor Archbishop Sigeric, and the method by which the money was raised is evidence of Aethelred's administrative skill. The money was collected from towns and villages by Aethelred's tax collectors as protection money, not unlike the money or services paid by tenants to the lords under the feudal system. So he was able to organize the collecting of money, and that was an idea by the Archbishop Sigeric to pay the Vikings or the Danes money so that they don't attack. But it didn't work. Aethelred's patience with the Viking hordes must have worn thin by 1002, for he decided to deal with the invaders by a surprise coup. He ordered a massacre of all Danes on St. Teresa's Day, the 30th of November, and many settlements were destroyed. The main effect, however, was to destabilize the country and bring to the fore powerful lords, one of whom was Edward Ironside. These lords created their private domains, thus undoing all efforts to create a unified kingdom. So he wanted to regain the control, and he attacked the regions where the Vikings had settled. And I don't know the details, but he ordered a massacre of all. And the idea was that now new lords would govern there, all together in a unified kingdom, but they more or less became local lords, their private domain. Aethelred was forced into exile in Normandy by his wife Emma, but was recalled for an ineffective end to his reign. The end came with Sweyn Thorpir's arrival in England and the takeover of the English throne by Canute, a Danish king, on the death of Aethelred. Somehow did his wife Emma force him to go into Normandy in France, into exile. He came then back, but there was when the Danish king, or important person of Vikings, of the Danes, Sweyn Thorpir, and the Danes took over the throne with King Canute, whom we have in two parts, after his death. The timeline of the reign, 978-1016. 978, King Edward the Martyr is murdered at Corfe Castle. He is succeeded by Aethelred II the Unready. Edward is revered as a Martyr. So the name is King Edward the Martyr. We don't have the part about King Edward the Martyr, but he was murdered and he is seen as Martyr. And then the successor was Aethelred II. 980. The Danes raid England and succeed because of Aethelred's inability to unite the English. So we're saying raid England, 980. It was 22 years before he ordered the massacre. So already 988. Dunstan dies and is succeeded by Aethelgar as Archbishop of Canterbury. But it was Cedric who advised them to pay the Vikings. 990, Aethelred dies and is succeeded by Cedric Sergio as Archbishop of Canterbury. So 990, Cedric Sergio becomes the Archbishop of Canterbury. 991, Battle of Maldon. The Ryfnoth of Essex is defeated by the Danes under Olaf Thurglason. So there was a Battle of Maldon, and where the Ryfnoth is just the title of the name. Where the Ryfnoth of Essex is defeated by Olaf Thurglason. Despite a stand in the indecisive Battle of Maldon, he found it difficult to protect his people from Danish attacks. 994, the Danish king Svein leads an attack on England. Archbishop Cedric dies. But it's maybe not related. 1012. The Danes raid Kent, burning Canterbury Cathedral and murdering Archbishop Aethelred. So 1012. 1014. Battle of Clontarf. The Rhine-Beru, the Irish king, defeats Danish raiders. Sven Forkbeard dies at Gainsborough and is succeeded by his son Canute. But we have written a little bit in front in the last part. Canute, who was Danish, and Edmund Ironside, the Saxon, after several fierce battles, the two claimants agreed to a peaceful settlement by sharing the kingdom between them. Ironside died soon after, leaving Canute as sole king. And Canute then marries Emma of Normandy. That is probably the same Emma, widow of Aethelred II, here written with an E. That is probably Aethelred II with an A. So we have to get, we don't really look through what is happening here now. Here's now said, the Irish king, the Rhine-Beru, defeats the Danish raiders. Sven Forkbeard dies at Gainsborough, and then his son Canute succeeds him as ruler of the Danes, probably, 1013. And 1016, when King Canute of England, probably. So I think 1014, Sven Forkbeard, the king of the Danes, dies, and then Canute becomes the king of the Danes, 1014. From I don't know, maybe they have been fighting with Edmund Ironside, and then 1016 King Canute becomes not only king of the Danes, but also of whole England. But let's go on. 1016, Aethelred dies and is succeeded by his son Edmund II. Ironside, Edmund and Canute fight for the kingdom. Okay. St. Dunstan crowned King Edward the Martyr in 975, and his murder. Who was murdered? King Edward was murdered. And his murder at Corfe Castle by the household of Aethelred the Unready at the instigation of his mother Aethelred. Oh, that is the description of the two pictures. Yeah, that's the description of the pictures. So the first picture, the top one, is St. Dunstan crowning King Edward the Martyr in 975. So there he is crowned the King Edward, by the Archbishop of Dunstan. And then the lower picture, there is depicted that he's murdered at Corfe Castle by the household of Aethelred the Unready at the instigation of his mother Aethelred. So the household of Aethelred had killed him on the instigation of his mother Aethelred. Okay. Right, the last Viking king of Northumbria was Eric Bloodaxe. The silver penny bears an unsheathed sword, a symbol of his heaven rule in Northumbria. Heaven rule? Heaven rule? I don't know what it means. It's not heaven. Okay, whatever. There's an unsheathed sword on that coin. Now, that was Aethelred the Unready. If you were here for medieval history, you can go directly to the next part of medieval history. We will continue with the next parts before we will then go back, knowing what happens here with King Canute a bit previously, go then back and make presentations about Aethelred the Unready, for example. That means if you were here for medieval studies, you can go directly to the next part of medieval studies. If you stay here and participate in the stretching, you're directly on the desk. The feet are standing together. Open with one toe, the other toes. Heels, toes, heads on, as far as you can go. And again in, toes, heels. Stay down with the knees this time. Up here. Shoulder wide apart, breathe in the arms up. Then out and go to the side. In and up. Out to the other side. In and up. Out with hands down. Slide down on one side. Breathe in. Out one arm over. Breathe in and open the ribcage. Out and back. In. Out one hand slides down the leg. Hammer shoulder stays down. Breathe in. Out one arm over. In and up the ribcage. Out and back. Have feet standing together, the arms up. Breathe out one arm down. Reach. In and up. Out the other one down. Reach. In and up. And out and down. Shoulder wide apart and shoulder circles. Back, up, in front and down. And backwards. And breathe in, lift the shoulders up. Out and down. In and up. Out and down. In the arms up. And reach always with one hand high up. Pretend to take an apple hanging high on an apple branch. To turn it a bit around and then to rip it out. And the legs to sides, arms to sides, breathe in. And out, shift out to one side. Again in. And out of the other side. In and up. And out and lean onto the knees. Breathe in. And out of one shoulder in front. In and back. Out the other one in front. In and back. And out and hang down. Breathe in. And out the outer one leg. Breathe in. Out to the other leg. Breathe in. Out into the middle. And close the feet, but keep on hanging down. Breathe in. And out. Again in. And out comes slowly around, back up. Make it a double backward shoulder. Toes are pulling to the outside. Breathe in the arms up. And out and sink down. Elbows against the insides of knees. Breathe in and straighten up. And breathe out and come with the back up. Again in. Out and down. Again in, straighten up. And out, come in one straight line upwards. Hands again down. Legs wide apart. Breathe in and down. And breathe out, draw the shoulder blades together. In and up. Out and down. Breathe in and close the legs. And breathe again out. It was a stretching. I thank you very much, and until next time.